Um, because this is informal teaching, so I'm not doing any chanting, nothing like that. Okay, please. But at the same time, uh, because this is a Buddhist exchange, so whatever our marriage, uh, that would be earned, it's good to dedicate. So in the beginning, cultivate from the motivationalism to come, and then properly list. That's important, and eventually proper dedication. So if any action that is motivated by renunciation, that will become an action. If it's motivated by renunciation, it's of liberation. If it's motivated by bodhicitta, it will be cost of. It will become cost for. Yeah. It will become cause for enlightenment. So we'll simply recite the most common resolution, Buddha Sangha, until enlightenment, I seek refuge in you. So that's a refuge, seeking refuge in the Buddha Sangha. Then, by the power of listening to this teaching, okay, or by power of this exchange of karma, may and karma Buddha to benefit us. So this we recite 3 times. Okay. To Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, until enlightenment, I seek refuge in you. By the power of exchanging Dhamma, marriage, accommodating exchanging Dhamma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. To Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, until enlightenment, I seek refuge in you. By the power of exchanging Dhamma, may I become Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. To Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, until enlightenment, I seek refuge in you. By the power of exchanging Dhamma, they come Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Or by the power of sharing Dhamma, may I become Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Okay. So it's okay. That's okay. I thought I was seeing you here, so it's your sister.
It is illusions.
Yeah. So, Geshe Dalai to everyone. Some of you may have seen me before, but too many, I'm a new face. What doesn't matter. So the topic I was given is actually a very important topic for Buddha truths. But about something about which you basically know, generally speaking. Sometimes when I give teachings, because I don't know the background of the students or the audience, and I don't know how to actually give a teaching that would be most useful. So, nevertheless, okay, if it's too simple, please let me know. If it's too complicated, let me know. Basically, we all know what are Eightfold Truths. The sequence, there are 2 ways of counting the sequences of the Four Noble Truths. First, one is on the basis of cause and effect. So, in that respect, truth of cause of suffering comes first, then truth of cause comes second. Then, for the latter 2 truths, truth of the path to cessation comes first. Truth of cessation comes later. It's his classification or enumeration of Four Noble Truths on the basis of cause and result. But usually, when we explain the Four Noble Truths, we begin with the truth of suffering. Then on the truth of cause of suffering. And then the truth of cessation. And then the truth of path to cessation. This is our usual way of arranging the Four Noble Truths. It seems right. So, when it comes to cause and effect, the cause of suffering comes first. But here, when in the scriptures and when Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths, he taught the truth of suffering first. So, I think that's very, very significant. Because if you don't understand suffering properly, then Dhamma will not be appreciated properly. The more you understand suffering, the more detail you understand suffering, the more sense Dhamma will make to you. So, when he gave teachings on the Four Noble Truths, that's the first Dhamma chakra that the Buddha will of Dhamma that he taught. According to my understanding, Buddha Shakyamuni, when he came to India, at that time, my understanding is was already a Bodhisattva Temple. According to Tantra, he was already enlightened. According to Theravada or that perspective of Hidayah, he was just noted at birds who made town during enlightenment. So, irrespectively, the life story of Buddha Shakyamuni at this time was commonly known, and his encounter with the four kinds of sufferings. That's also commonly known. I don't have to repeat those stories. So, after his enlightenment, he took up his teaching for some time, for 49 days. In fact, what he proclaimed was sufficient to much profound, free of elaboration, highlight, and composite, non-foreign composite. Such a nectar-like Dhamma I have found. However, whoever I speak about it, they don't seem to understand it. So I will seclude myself, retreat into the forest. Right. So His Holiness' way of explaining this stanza, although it's just outwardly it looks like His Holiness, the Buddha was not ready to give teaching because the teaching that or the Dhamma that he has extremized within himself looks very difficult for people that don't understand it. So he said, instead I would just isolate myself, retreat myself into the forest. However, so another reason why he didn't give teaching strategy at that time was he was waiting for Brahma and Indra to requesting for the teachings.
Recording in progress.
Okay, they were able to be right. And they were able to listen.
Discussion.
Okay. And so conscientiousness is very important. Mindfulness. So after being requested by Dharma and Indra, he gave his first teaching at Sabnath, Varanasi. Now, why do you think he was waiting for Brahma and Indra to address the teaching? The most important reason is Brahma and Indra, they are actually the chief gods of desire. So if, like, for example, invitation to you came from the Prime Minister of India, wouldn't that make a huge difference? Likewise, for Dharma to be respected, people need to give it seriousness. If you don't give respect to Dharma, just treat it very casually, then maybe academically you may learn some Dharma, but that Dharma will not be useful. So because of that, he was waiting for Indra and Brahma to request teachings, and then when they requested, and then he decided to teach. Not that he didn't want to teach. The very purpose of enlightenment is to help sentient beings to enlightenment. And for that, the best way you can help sentient beings to enlightenment is through teachings. I have given you the path to liberation. Know that liberation depends on you. But himself protect. So the path to liberation, if it's not shown, you will not know it naturally. So we need someone to show the path to liberation. So only by showing the path to liberation can you attain liberation. The Buddha's two opportunities cannot wash away your sins by water. He cannot cleanse the suffering, remove the sufferings of sentient being by his hands or their hands. Okay, the Buddhas cannot wash away sins of sentient beings by their hands, nor can they remove the sufferings or miseries of sentient beings by their hands, nor can they transfer their own omniscience onto sentient beings. Only by showing the path can sentient beings be liberated. That's very, very important. That's very important. Because your mindset and Buddha's mindset are different. So the good thing about our ordinary minds and an enlightened minds is, in terms of being minds, mind basically, when we define minds or mind, we speak in terms of two aspects. One is illuminating nature. What it means is mind is not physical. That's the very important factor to keep in mind. Mind is not physical. Then its function, ability to absorb information. something which is non-physical, but has the ability to absorb information, be that a proper information or wrong information. Okay. So, in terms of its nature of luminosity and opulence, Buddha's enlightenment, our unenlightened mind, say, the only difference is our mind is contaminated, while the Buddha's mind are totally free of contamination. But in the nature of being mind, no difference. Then our mind, by nature, is empty, which means because it's empty by nature, not independently existent, it's dependently existent. So because it's dependently existent, it can be influenced by causes and conditions. When influenced by negative causes and conditions, then it becomes negative. When influenced by positive causes and conditions, it becomes positive. So the fact that the nature of mind is empty allows both positive and negative influence. So far, because our mind has been negatively influenced and negatively influenced mind, because it's a distortion of reality, will not because it's a distorted mind. The action triggered by a distorted mind will not be in line with reality. And that's why we continue to suffer because of our delusions. So, mind, when it's influenced by positive conditions, causes, then, and if it can be influenced continuously by positive factors, then that mind have no scope, no to remain vulnerable to external negative causes. Because if you look at negative causes, it's all distortion of reality. Okay, we'll come to that later. So, because we have the Buddha nature, Buddha said that kind of mind, which by its own nature, except that it's polluted for now, is as same as Buddha's mind. Secondly, the Buddha's mind is free of contamination for now. Our mind right now is not free of contamination. The contaminants are ephemeral, are not indispensable, inseparable part of the mind. If our delusions are inseparable parts of the mind, so long as the mind exists, they're like this. But if this is the case, without mind, if this is the case, then our mind would always be negatively inclined. But that is not the case. When you are even positive influences, your mind transforms positively. When you are subjected to negative influences, it becomes negative. Right? But fundamentally, it is a potential for perfection. The reason is because once these contaminants, which are ephemeral, impermanent, separable part of the mind, are removed, then that mind has capacity for omniscience. Okay. So because sentient beings have that nature, and when you truly, as you embark into the path of Dharma, and the more you realize the remarkable nature of mind, particularly if through reasoning you are able to distinguish the mind as, distinguish the mind as different from the brain. Because nowadays we are so fascinated by science that scientists who have no knowledge about mind, they tend to insinuate that our mind is reducible to brain. So we tend to take them seriously, even if, the mind is not a subject of expertise. A subject of expertise, external matters. Okay. But they think they know everything about the mind. No, they don't know. Because they don't meditate. They don't study. They don't contemplate. And even if they contemplate a little, with a very flimsy reasoning, they say mind is part of the brain. No. One reason is there are many evidence of children remembering their past lives. Reincarnation is not a concept created by Hinduism or Buddhism or Jainism. No. It's a discovery of reality. It's not put us in flesh. It is there to discover for us. The University of Virginia has hundreds of children remembering, has a collection of the memories of hundreds of children who have remember their past life. It's a particular department. But then they haven't really published it widely. Yet they preserve information in that department. I went there. So knowing we have this potential within us, if we embark on the practice of Dhamma, it will make a huge difference. Because oftentimes what happens is we tend to doubt, would I be able to get enlightened? Is it possible for me? Well, there are others. And then when you have eminent masters story, oftentimes we come across statements such as, oh, this is a reincarnation of this and that, as if every successful scholar or a practitioner is a reincarnation of a past Buddha or a Bodhisattva. One of my uncles, who is normal now, told me, is it possible for me? Because when I look at the high lamas, they are all reincarnation of someone else. So then what is that called for me? At that time I was too naive and too young to understand. Now I understand. Well, even if there are reincarnations of past Bodhisattvas, Buddhists and Buddhas, if we don't have the ability of Buddhahood, why are they for us? What is the role? What role do they have in preaching us, in different teachings? No. If you don't have the capability, why would they struggle so hard to teach us? I sometimes wish if my late uncle could have that thought in his mind. Then if you become a practitioner yourself, you come to sense that yes, no matter how good a practitioner or how whoever could be out incarnation of someone else in the past, doesn't matter, because when you work with your own practice, you see your experience as evidence that you can improve. And I think so that's a first-hand experience. Once you get to that point, then there is no stopping. For example, when I became a monk, I didn't understand anything about Tushita, fear of emptiness. When I heard about that, well, that was a far-fetched dream. I only thought, okay, I'll be a quick monk so that I'll go out and in lovering in my next life. That's the only thought I had in my mind. And then when I studied, I thought, okay, I can understand the teachings literally, but for me to actualize the teachings, very difficult. Now I'm not saying I've achieved a lot, but I'm confident that Buddhism is not that difficult if you could give it real importance and time. view of emptiness, I don't think it's out mind resting. I'm not saying it like the Arabics, but I have been in Lama for more than 30 years. So when you actually come to sense that you can improve, and what we can need is perseverance. That's very important. So for us to give rise to perseverance, if you don't understand suffering properly, and if you just study Dharma for academic knowledge, and you may become a Geshe, or maybe a professor, or whatever, or Buddhism, okay? But you are not better than a history, okay, talking about Buddha's enlightenment. They have generated Buddhists, but they have this and that. What do you have to check yourself? If you question yourself, it's difficult to answer. So therefore, when you actually study Dharma, you should aim for enlightenment and shouldn't think less of yourself, too less of yourself. The sort of thing, it's not written in the language, no. I'll give you one example. Okay. One of my friends, my roommate, he's a hermit now in Nepal. Confidentially, he shared with me that when he practiced meditation and when he has attained some level, not entirely shamatha commanding, then he could have dreams of his past life. One which he said was sadist dog or policeman, police sadist dog. Okay. So then I thought that's not true, because when he used to run, and when he used to look at us, when I would stare at us, like suspicious eye. I have seen that for so many years. Now that looks so true. And another case, a friend of us, okay, going friend of us, I'm not going to end that case is if somehow click gets to hear this. He told me the other Geshe was a beautiful lady in Tibet, Nepal border. Beautiful women, very attractive, but didn't seem to have much dharma. Now, in this life, he's a Geshe Ngawang, good scholar. And the reason why I believe his dream is because when that Geshe Ngawang monk wave at people, call them or talk,
Okay.
the way ladies do, okay, the way they wake their hands, not like usually boys or men do. So these are actually great encouragements. So there are lots of stories like that. Anyway, so in a sense, karma has so elements in it which gives you encouragement. All right. So on one side, if you're able to see the possibility within you, that will give you gold. On another side, even though this possibility, the risk of not using this opportunity properly, that is there, because we may take it very casually. So then, remembering suffering this life, of lower realms, and think of impermanence, that this respite, I would say, should escape from major sufferings of lower realms that we have. We could lose it anytime. So the more you think of the sufferings of lower realms, the more determined you would become to practice Dharma. If you think, oh, I'm going to live very long, you never know. So impermanence, think of impermanence. That is certain. The time of death, nobody knows. It could be any time. The factors that leads to one's death, innumerable. Even the medicines that are supposed to heal us could turn poisonous. So if you are able to reflect on impermanence constantly, that will give you an energetic practice. Okay, so because of that, contemplation of suffering is very important. That's why the Geshe Ngawang said, spoke about suffering first. Meditating on suffering is not a small meditation. Okay, and in Lama, if you read Lama someday, so Baba says, other than the meditation of on suffering, there isn't anything more profound than that. So then what is suffering? Okay, so recognize that we are actually suffering beings. Recognition that is so important. So because of that, Geshe Ngawang gave on in his teaching on the follower truths, he spoke about the truth of suffering. Now, what does suffering entails? Basically, there are three kinds of suffering. You all know, right? One is suffering of suffering. So Westerners, they don't connect with that. Suffering of suffering doesn't make any sense to them because it's grammatically they see something weird in that. Okay, let's say suffering of misery. Okay, you just change the word. That's it. But if Tibetan is dungye ki dungye. Dungye means suffering. Ki is off. Then dungye. Okay. So that means tangible suffering for which you don't need evidence. Kidney pain, headache, all kinds of painful experiences, be they mental or physical. Those are suffering. Even animals understand suffering. Okay, so you don't need logic to explain suffering. So contemplation of suffering begins with suffering of suffering. Then second kind of suffering is difficult for us, but if you truly look at it logically, then it's real suffering of change. So our experiences of pleasure, joy, or what we call as samsara happiness, yeah, suffering of change. To understand that as suffering, it's a little complicated, but not impossible. We are not saying that's not a joyful experience, okay? But now looks like good temperature right now, but usually Delhi is very hot, right? So when it's very hot, then you have air conditioning, right? Then what happens when it's very hot and you put on the air conditioning, you feel like quite relieved. Oh, and I'm happy. Earlier I was sweating, it's so hot. But then if you stay in air conditioning for warm, what happens? Then you feel it's too cold, right? So earlier there was pain of heat. The heat was unbearable. So you introduce the opposite of heat, cold. And because they contradict one another, so the coldness of the air conditioning, the cold of the air condition reduces the heat, and you feel a little relief from the heat that you were experiencing. The heat that you were experiencing was not a joyful experience. There was some form of suffering, right? So you escape from that, and momentarily there was some relief from that headache of heat, from heat. But if you continue with the air condition, then again there will be some another complication. So you have to put it off at some point. So what does that speak of? It shows that your experience of so-called joy is just a state of relief from another suffering. Okay, another more tangible suffering. So if you have headache, you take paracetamol. Okay, maybe 2 tablets, and then it's gone. You feel happy. Actually, it's not happiness. It's just a sense of that headache that you're experiencing. The headache earlier was unbearable. You just, because of factor, you're able to get relief from that. So you're able to get some relief. The same thing applies with attachment. Because when there's lust, you really crave for something. I must get it. So there's kind of a exigency or circle of frustration if you don't get it because of attachment. So when you get it, there is kind of relief. When I got this wristwatch in English, I thought that's good too. Hey, this is not working now. No attachment. So anyway, like that. You thought something was so marvelous at one point. Oh, he has it. I must also have it. When I actually get it, it's just as ordinary as it would be. Right. So that's suffering of change. It's actually a slight experience of relief from another ongoing frustration or kind of disalignment or suffering. Okay. So suffering of change, I think if you understand it properly, then you become a good practitioner. Because why are we not able to give up our ordinary samsaric well-being for the pursuit of enlightenment like Miller? Because we think, okay, things are good here. Things are good. And we only wish them to continue. So that means we are very short-sighted. Well, we only wish we have no guarantee. And then we may be lucky. Yeah, we continue. But once these are finished, we never know what is in store for you in terms of your past karma. Right. So contemplation of this element of suffering is important. The more you think, what keeps us attracted to our ordinary ways is suffering and change. We cherish our little experiences, which are actually flimsy deception. So there's a Tibetan expression, Tibetan word for that. This joy is another phase of suffering. It's another phase of suffering. It's actually suffering, but presented in a different mode. Briefly, we tend to think that's so important. Oh, I have his house, that property, his spouse, his title, this salary, this car, this physical body, this intelligence. So enough. We tend to think that. But if you think in terms of lifetime, and these are in a way good conditions for us to practice Dharma if you think in that way. But if you just remain attached to these small things, emotion is very strange. Whichever emotion is stronger, that will direct your actions. So emotion of attachment to flimsy things, if it's stronger, it will stop you from practicing Dharma seriously. If emotionally you dread the sufferings of lowering samsara in general, and if that's stronger, then none of these things which seem to attract us will nominate us. So recognizing the suffering of change is important. But it's not just Buddhist, non-Buddhist like Jain practitioners, Hindu sadhus. They totally understand the suffering of change. So it says asceticism is practiced there. Strong meditation is practiced. To some extent, some level of renunciation is also in depth. So they practice strong discipline. Now, the third suffering, pervasive composite sap, pervasive kappa. Pervasive means the former two sufferings, suffering of misery or suffering, and the suffering of change. So the third suffering pervades over these first two suffering. Mean, so long as you have the first two suffering, suffering of suffering and suffering of change. So when either of these are present, the third suffering will always be present. Okay, so the third suffering pervades over the first two sufferings. If either of the first two sufferings are there, the pervasive suffering will always be there. Okay, that's why it pervades over the two sufferings. That means another way of seeing it as pervasive is seeing it pervades over the entirety of samsara rings. Now, what is then composite? Literally, composite means something that is composed of one or two more factors, two or three factors. So here, karma and delusion. Due to karma and delusion, we suffer. So our suffering or state of being is all results of our past karma, which are triggered by delusions. So basically, we are influenced or triggered or propelled by karma and delusion. So composite. Okay, pervasive composite suffering. So in other words, the third suffering entails being totally under influence of delusions that would trigger karma, that would trigger birth, which will be full of sufferings and tears. So once you know that so long as you have delusions, you'll have negative actions, positive actions too, but you're never free as long as you have ignorance, attachment, and anger within you. Momentarily, because of good conditions, a good education and so forth, you may be able to calm your mind and not resort to anger or too much attachment. But so long as these are not uprooted, then the seeds of delusion, which is ignorance grasping at independent existence, so long as that is there, you're not really free. For example, it is cancer surgery. Okay, you get some treatment, but the cancer cell is not removed. You feel you're not free. You're always vulnerable. So likewise, so long as the delusions are there, we're not really free. No matter how successful, how young, how intelligent, how happy you are for now. So this kind of contemplation is very important. So the third suffering, because that's so important, Tamaki said, thinking of the third suffering, composite suffering, the Buddha has taught us to meditate on suffering. So real meditation on suffering, not just think of the lower realms suffering, like heroin, hunger ghost realms suffering, not just that. This is just one aspect of it, one very bad aspect of it. But the fact of being influenced by delusions that determine every aspect of our experience, where we have no control. So long as delusions within me are never free if you, unless you get it properly in your mind, you cannot be a good practitioner. So that's important. So when he explain the Four Noble Truths, he said, first level, they need to get power about this. Know that this is the truth of suffering, truth of suffering. No whole truth of suffering. That know that this is the noble truth of cosmic suffering. And he said, know that this is the truth of noble truth of cessation. Then know that this is the noble path of the truth of cessation. Path that leads to the truth of cessation. So noble, why would we say noble truth? Okay. Because in the eyes of ordinary beings, they have no idea of the truth of cessation. So they will not address it. Because they don't even know the term truth of cessation. They do not know the truth of path. They know to some extent suffering. But all suffering is about suffering. All they know is suffering, basically. And the suffering of change, basically, they think this is happiness. This is joy. And they have no idea about that. Pervasive composite suffering. So, these are not truth understood by ordinary people. But our hearts, those who have seen emptiness properly, directly, they truly see suffering for what it is, as it is. Recognize suffering properly. So in the eyes of those who have seen the ultimate reality of things, what constitutes suffering is real suffering. They understand suffering properly. They recognize suffering as suffering. But usually suffering, we don't really recognize. We barely recognize suffering of suffering. So in the eyes of noble being or arhats, or not more arhats, arya, superior beings means Bhagwan. Superior beings means beings who have seen emptiness directly. So path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of sea. From path of sea onwards, you have seen emptiness directly. So those who have attained above path of same, they are noble beings, Aryas. So because noble beings, Aryas, to their eyes, these are reality. These are true. These hold true. They see suffering properly. They see the cause of suffering. They see the possibility of cessation. They know what leads to cessation. So they are really true for that. So because in their eyes, they are so sure, therefore they are called for noble truths. So I don't know if I had to address that. Anyway, that's his job to clarify, not mine. So
Is it called the suffering of aggregates of the third?
no. So aggregates basically, yes. Or aggregates basically 5 aggregates: form, then feeling, then discrimination, then composition factors, then private consciousness. So these are 5 aggregates which constitute us. Basically, the first is body, form body. Then the rest are minds. Primary minds, secondary minds. Last is the primary minds. Secondary minds, 49 are constituted in composition factor. Then 2, feeling and discrimination, are counted separately because on the basis of feeling, non-monastics, ordinary people, they fight with one another. Kings fought with other kings over wives. So it's actually on the basis of feeling, ordinary feeling. Okay. Then monastics or scholars fight over whose law speaks better. So this create discrimination. But these two form the roots of samsara for ordinary people and for scholars. So these were counted separately. So these are 5 aggregates. And these 5 aggregates are the results. Well, basically, these 5 aggregates are pervasive composite suffering in a way. But when we count the suffering, we don't count them as, we don't use them as a synonymous term for the third suffering. Okay. So this now understanding suffering is important. So suffering has three: suffering of misery, then suffering of change, pervasive opposite suffering. Okay. If you understand suffering properly, then you want to know, proper understanding of suffering happens when you understand pervasive opposite suffering, the third one. That's why Dharmakirti says the Buddha has taught us to meditate on suffering because by thinking of the pervasive composite suffering, by focusing or thinking of the pervasive composite suffering, the Buddha has taught us to contemplate suffering. So if you want to contemplate suffering, pervasive composite suffering, that's very important. Once you understand that, now what entails being composite? So two factors: delusion and karma. Karma arises from delusion, basically. Particularly negative karma arises from delusion. And what is delusion? No. Or negative minds. At the root of negative minds is grasping at an independent self. Me. Then mine. Right? So, 다연만의 시행도신, 당신샤를 찜다당, 대다당의 용대회, 예바탐제 중어주. Dharmakirti says, by grasping at an I, autonomous I, then you discriminate others as them, against others as them. 다연의 시행도신. 당신샤래, so long as discrimination as me and mine, they and them, then there will be attachment and aversion. Attachment and aversion will follow. Connected with them, countless, all the faults will follow. I think that's a very, very important stanza. By thinking of an autonomous self, then you label others as different or them. And if there's a demarcation between me and mine, they and them, then attachment to me and mine, aversion against they and them will arise. From attachment and aversion, actions will be committed. And as a result of those actions, you'll suffer. Right. So that's understanding the concept of that stanza. That's very, very important. Now, at the heart of that attachment, aversion, basically we all know what attachment is, grossly speaking. But real understanding of attachment comes when you think of, at the heart of attachment, what lies. At the heart of attachment is grasping at an independent self. And why is that wrong? Because there is no independent self. Self does exist, but not independently. We'll come to that later, okay? So, once you understand self as being dependently originated and not existing and intimately, and we understand that we are still grasping at independent self, and that grasping leads to me and mine, and then you understand that ignorance is the root of delusions like attachment and anger. Not only that, there is an element of ignorance permeating with attachment, ignorance permeate over attachment and anger. Thinking of an independent I, because you are attached to an independent I, then you are attached to what is mine of me and mine. Once you know there is no independent I only exist dependently, then there is no independent mind. So the very basis for attachment is destroyed. Likewise, they and them, they exist, of course, but only dependently, like I exist dependently. Because of that, there is no autonomous or independent A and them. Once you know that, there is no basis for anger. Because for attachment and anger, they need absolute, tangible, concrete object to grasp at. Once you understand emptiness properly, you're able to see everything as like an illusion. Like an illusion is important. Illusion means, it's just distortion. Okay, like an illusion means it's there, but there's something wrong about it. Its appearance. For example, reflection in the mirror. It's a reflection. But when it appears, it really appears like your face. And so, actually, if you don't know this is a mirror, people might think this is actually a face. But sometimes kids who have no knowledge of reflection in the mirror, they think it has come across another kid on the other side. So that is see illusion as something real. But because things don't exist on their own, here they appear to exist on their own. So you understand that there is something wrong with this appearance. Right. Okay, so there are two ways to look at how delusions are negative. One is when delusions besets or when delusions are within us, we are disturbed, we are not happy. Another thing is, because of these delusions, we commit either positive or negative karma. If we commit positive karma, momentarily we'll be in better realms, like humans, but we are not stripped free. But if we commit negative karma, because of this negative karma, we might end up in low realms. So both positive and negative karma arising from grasping an independent self will keep you in samsara. Right. So that's and then if you think of the sufferings of lower realms, impossible to apprehend. If just thinking of the intensity of heat of lower realms like fire realm, unbearable. If that is unbearable and actually going there and experiencing it, that's so unbearable. So the more you think of that, the more you dread illusions, because these are the results of negative karmas triggered by delusions or grasping it in the eye. Alright? Which are then, so not only would you dread being born in lower realms, but you will also not be satisfied being born as screaming again and again, so long as you have not got rid of the grasping an independent self, independent phenomena. Right? So now seeing the possibility that grasping an independent self, that thought can be eliminated. To do that, if you don't understand emptiness, and then it's quite difficult. Well, if you are a practitioner here, and even if you have not understood emptiness, But if you have been practicing Buddhism, strong renunciation, strong discipline, and if through your own experience, for example, not all who have pure visions of Buddhas, not have pure visions of Buddhas, have understood emptiness. But because of their own discipline, because of their own Buddhist compassion, faith, people have changed, different experiences. Therefore, give them enough confidence that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are there. So that's one way to cultivate faith in the presence of the Buddhas and so forth. And because of that will encourage them to practice strongly, because they know enlightenment is possible through their own experience. Another way is, if you understand emptiness properly, intellectually and experientially and meditatively, and then through your own experience, your delusions, it has been reduced, your anger is reduced. As a result, you can remain happy or very warm. And where others are attached, you are not triggered. Where others get angry, you don't get angry. And as a result, because these are opposition, anger is the opposite of affection, genuine affection for others, sentiments, compassion. So, if anger is not there, then the possibility of having genuine compassion, that is actually, and the experience of being able to generate genuine compassion for people becomes easy when you have understood emptiness and to some extent reduce your anger. And there is more capacity for patience. As a result, you know that these teachings work. That encourages you. And you continue to explore emptiness. And then really, critically, you understand emptiness. And then you develop shamatha, karma biting, combined experience of emptiness. What you have understood, intellectual understanding of emptiness, okay? Intellectual means not just understanding from text, okay? Not through reasoning. You have concluded that this is truly empty. Self is truly empty. Convincingly, if you understand emptiness based on conviction, by using reasons such as dependent origination, when you realize emptiness, and then when you combine your realization of emptiness with meditation of shamatha, then you can see really wonderful experiences happening in you. And because of that, there will be a different way of looking at Buddhist community.所以觉得，所以觉得没历史写了就足够了。Like this is because his teachings on selflessness are his most important teachings. So, if you know infallibility, the teachings of emptiness, then you can, because you understand now, in part, emptiness or selfless being the most important aspects of Buddha's teaching. If you understand Buddha being so infallible, so true with respect to his teaching on emptiness, then other aspects of teachings on karma, which are more obscure, like commit this action, and after 10,000 years, you'll have this kind of result. If there are some proclamations like that in Subra, there is no way we can determine that, nor can we oppose that. But because they came from the same Buddha who taught emptiness, you can have trust in their faith in them. That faith is not a blind faith because it is basis. For the Buddha who taught there, same Buddha, main part of his teaching is emptiness. And in that, the Buddha is so true. So because of that, we can trust it. So different element of faith will grow in you. So don't rush into getting enlightened without studying emptiness, without practicing renunciation, without practicing bodhicitta. These three are so important. So once you have realized emptiness and done meditation, then you see the possibility of cessation. Right? So when he taught suffering, he taught three kinds of suffering, but the main emphasis on third suffering. To understand the third suffering properly, you have to understand the truth of cause of suffering, which are karma and delusion. Now, delusion basically different divisions. Okay, so I need to 6 root delusions. Within that, there are view delusions, non-view delusions like attachment and non-view, grasping an independent subject or grasping it transitory recollection. And because we are so new to English words, these are not there in English, so we have to, translators have to invent. So in English, different uses of terminologies, but this is being used like Geshe Ngawang, and I also quite agree with that. So, or perishable collection. We are grasping at perishable collection means basically 5 aggregates are perishable by nature. They are perishable by force of karma. And then because they are impermanent phenomena, so momentarily they change, so perishable. So 5 aggregates, based on the 5 aggregates, then we have the concept of independent I. Or in other words, based on 2 aggregates, body and mind, then we have postulation of me. Why do you call yourself a woman based on body? Why do you call yourself intelligent based on the mind? Why do we say we came from past life? Because of the continuity of the mind. Why do we say we'll go to enlightenment? Because of the continuity of the mind. Right? Why do we say I'm Tibetan? Because of Tibetan DNA, which is physical. So you either need the body or the mind to address you. So with the Pali, I think that is so important. You may write that down someday. That may be handy. If that exists on its own, independent on its own, why don't you point to that directly? Why do you need to depend on others and impute it, postulate it? Okay, let's say 3 people here, right? So what's your good name? Your good name. Nimang, you know what's your
Navan.
no
Navan. Yeah.
Naman. And you?
Sheena.
Sheena, Naman, Nimang. You might be in the setup. Okay. Let's say to address you, do I need Sheena or Naman? No. You go there. I can still point to him and speak about it. Now, why is that? Why do I not need Sheena or Naman to speak about you? Because you are independent of them. They can go to Delhi, they can go to Dharamsala, they can vanish anywhere they want, okay, get enlightened, okay. But then, without your body or mind, can I address you? No. Okay. I can address them, you, without depending on these 2 friends of yours, okay? Because you are independent of them. But without your mind or attributes, parts of your mind, or past continuity or future continuity or different aspects of your mind, I cannot speak about or your aspects of your body, parts of your body, past continuation of your body, future continuation of the body, or different parts of the body, or body as a whole. I cannot speak about your right. Why? If you exist independent of your body and mind, I can address that independent I directly, absent of your minds and your body. Right? Do you understand that? So if I exist independent of the mind and body, why do you always need body and mind to address, speak about the I? that made a huge sense to me. And later, one of my health friends told me, when they saw escape of teaching on emptiness, he quoted this line from Buddha. The text, I think it's the fifth chapter or something. I have to find it again. I found it, that quote from Buddha. Steps. That made a huge sense to me. And his Holiness talked during one of his teachings that even if you have to read or write this line, by quote, it's so important. You can so precious and so important that you may need to write them in gold. You don't need gold. Basically, he was emphasizing the importance actually to that. The statement from Buddha Palida's text. Okay. So anyway, so if you study emptiness and get rich, and the more you get about emptiness, the more you see Lama is basically very, very realistic. And also exploring reality without being partial, unbiased, intruthful. And then when it's actually experientially, when you see the change in you, then nobody needs to push you. Okay. That's very good. So when you understand it, first to the emptiness properly, then through the accumulation of merit, purification, support your experience once contemplation of meditation with accumulation and purification, and someday it will take a different shape, which is now more an intellectual understanding for a real conviction. Then you combine that with samatha meditation. Then you can see reduction of your daily rush. So it's almost like even if you have not reached the peak, it's where you can see the peak. So you see, oh, here's the peak now. Okay, I'm halfway, but this is possible. Once you know that this is possible, then there's no stopping you. All right. So that's very important. So if you understand properly emptiness, it will help you to understand the delusions, that these delusions are advantageous, these are distortion of reality. And so you see different aspects of delusion in terms of recognizing them for their negativity. Usually we think all delusions leads to suffering. Yeah, true. That also important. But seeing that anger, attachment are distortion of reality. So now, momentarily, until you reach emptiness, what could we do? Now understand suffering, okay? And for the truth of suffering, how many aspects are there? 16 aspects basically for Four Noble Truths, right? Four each. So for the truth of suffering, what are the two first aspects? Without the impermanence and suffering nature. Right? So very useful. In this aspect, domain or suffering nature, it's included impure nature. And when we are attached to something, are we attached to our own toilets? No, I mean not the house, okay, not the room. One comes out of us, not good at all, right? What comes from us also not attractive. But what goes inside has to always clean. What comes out always unclean. What does that say about body? It's a machine that creates impurities, basically. But machine itself is pure, then can it create impurity? No. So that means our body basically is very impure. It's not tidy. It's not real clean. So thinking of the uncleanliness nature of the body, that's very important. I'm not speaking of any idiot, all of us. Look at our body, made of bone, pulse, blood. If you peel off the skin, there's nothing there. That's reality. Now, the more when you see something externally attractive, you have two choices. Okay, it's so attractive. Appreciate that. Okay, and succumb to attachment. Or you just say, oh, this is only at the surface. Okay, if you peel off, there's nothing there. It's blood, pus, and flesh. And then you peel further, there's just skeleton. Right. So contemplating on that really helps you. Again, this physical body that either yours or others that we are so attached to, may so attached to, maybe. Once we die, they all become corpse. And then they will decompose, disintegrate. They become, as thin as the dust particles, they breathe out. Okay? Are we attracted to these dust particles? So the same nature. So if you think in that term, very good. So, impermanent suffering nature, if you contemplate these two aspects of the truth of cycling, is actually very good. But you might think, well, no. However, what happens is, if you emphasize on impermanence and suffering nature too much, then, okay, in terms of renunciation, this is useful. But again, this may lead to hatred to others. Oh, that can die. You might think like that. So therefore, combining that practice of impermanence and suffering nature with compassion, that's important. At the same time, what is impure externally, interpreting on my impure, has Buddha nature. That you also should not forget. Okay? And then whoever is impure, yourself, others, basically, if we think in terms of limitless lifetimes, in a pulse, we are all related. Everyone is one another's mother, father, sister. Right. However, why do we concentrate on looking at all sentient beings in the light of our mother? When they have been your father, when they have been your spouses, when they have been your enemies, you can think of the countless number of times they have harassed you, abused you, abused one another. We have. Why? It's because fundamentally nobody wants to suffer. Right? And if that is the case, then what happens is, if you concentrate on the negative side of reality, anger arises, animosity arises. And that's not useful because we don't want to suffer. But if you look at that positive aspects, where we look at sentient beings as having been our mother, because for us, the experience of mother's affection to her only child or children, that's unconditional, basically. Whether you call it biological or whatever you name it. But the reality is, in our own experience of compassion, a mother's unconditional love for her child is unquestionable. So we take that as an example and see everyone as having been on multiple times. So first begin with your mother. And when you actually think of your mother's kindness, okay, she may have been unkind to you. Doesn't matter. Don't consider that. Look at the kindness bestowed upon you by your mother. Continuously, your affection for your mother will naturally rise, get stronger and stronger. So, and then I think because there are many, it's good to share here the sense of gratitude that is there in your tradition. I really, really respect it. Because I have been to America. I have seen parents ignoring their children. The children ignoring their parents. Okay. Look out. They don't stay together first. And then children visit their parents only 2-3 times in a year. However, in India, we live together. Maybe once in a while we have some issues in the family, but despite that, the bigger picture is children always remember the kindness of their parents. And when the parents are no more able to take up themselves as they were when they were younger, then children take it upon themselves as a natural responsibility to take care of their parents. That culture of paying back the kindness of parents, kindness of others who have been kind to you. If you have that strong culture, then it's very relatable to Atisha's teaching of 7-fold cause and effect practice or practice under passion. Right. Now, that doesn't mean if you don't have good experience with your parents that you should not do that practice. You may not remember your parents' kindness if you have not been with them for a long time. But then, of course, you see that ample instances of kindness of mothers and children. Actually, on YouTube, one time I saw at a Facebook, I don't know, a crocodile about to eat the baby of a deer. The mother was running from there, and she ran into the mouth of the crocodile to save her child from being killed, knowing that there was no escape for her. So there are ample instances. So think you may have experienced some little difficulty with your mother in this one lifetime. But then if you look at examples of multiple mothers outside there, or the same kind of experience of motherhood that they're sending on their children, you can think, begin with your loved ones first, then neutral ones, then so-called animals. Anyway, having a sense of gratitude and then wanting to pay it back. That's Indian culture, and I really respect that. When I went to America on my own several times, then I thought I'm in the right place. In the right place, because eventually we all die. So what is being materialism? We have to leave everything behind. But here we have that is human to human connection, parent to child connection, and this great sense of respect, gratitude to parents. If that is there, and if you teach Atisha's text, very relatable. Right. So
when you practice, so instead of yearning for personal liberation,
if you think, that's not enough. If I get liberated, maybe, it's true, I'm free from samsara. I would be free from samsara, but my mother sentient beings. How could I leave them behind? For countless lifetimes, from beginningless time, we have supported one another. To various means. We have made mistakes, but we have supported one another to various means. We have been so kind to you. And now, why would I just ignore there? Where be? So then, by practicing, by feeling sorry for the state of our mother sentient beings, if we think, I should do something better than personal liberation. And what is the state attain which would help me to lead them to the state of perfect enlightenment? Because in this life, we cannot do much for others. We cannot even look after one individual properly throughout their life. Right? Limited. So, once enlightenment, once that attained, from your side, from every respect, you are capable of helping others. Right? So, it's only the sentient beings who need to connect with you. So, same concept of Four Noble Truths. If they apply them in association with bodhicitta, that's Mahayana practice. If you apply them only in association with just renunciation, then that's Theravada or Hinayana. But in terms of both of these falling under framework of Four Noble Truths, same. Likewise, Vajrayana means, well, it takes 3 countless years for me to get. In the meantime, three countless years to get enlightened. So, okay, from my side, I'm ready to do that. If you truly feel compassion, you should have that. You will have the strength to do that. But even if from my side, I have the strength to do that, while it takes that amount of time for me to get enlightened, my mother sentient beings, how much would they suffer? So as for myself, as far as my courage is concerned, yeah, I have the courage to live that long in such time, doesn't it? But if I look at the state of my mother sentient beings, even a second difference in my enlightenment will make a huge difference to their well-being. So the faster I get enlightened, the more relief I can bring to countless sentient beings. So there comes the practice of Vajrayana, Tantra. Okay, Tantra is not, Buddhist Tantra is not cult. It's not like magic, okay? At the heart of Tantrayana is Mahayana. At the heart of Mahayana is Hinayana. Theravada is the foundation of Mahayana. The only efforts, the only thing that is not needed for Mahayana practitioner from Theravada is practicing for oneself alone. That is not needed. Otherwise, anything, whatever is here, the teaching of Theravada, Mahayana practitioners have to practice. Then Vajrayana is actually a skillful means, an extension of Mahayana concept by application of skillful means to get enlightened as quickly as possible. So you need to really be very strict in terms of your discipline, dedication, effort, and an element of faith is very important, particularly in Tantrayana, irrespective of whoever your teacher is. Seeing them in the light of a Buddha. It's very important. They may be very ordinary looking, but if you're able to see them in the light of Buddha, you get blessings of Buddha. If you see there's an emanation of all the Buddhas combined together, you get the benefit of receiving Buddha's blessings. So it's up to you what you want. Benefit it or just lose because of the arrogance. So, in relation to Guru, the practice of Guru Yoga, again, sense of gratitude is very important. If you don't have a sense of gratitude in your culture, yeah, he is good. He has good intelligence. Yes, I like him.
And then that's it. Buddha, how can I look at him as a Buddha? He's just as ordinary as I am. Well, if you look at Milarepa, who were enlightened in one lifetime, I think he has the same ordinary body that we have. Omniscience is not visible to us. Right? So, however, if you understand the Four Noble Truths properly, if you understand bodhicitta properly, some level of practice of bodhicitta, renunciation, emptiness, and because of the confidence that you get through this practice, the benefit that you have seen within yourself, then even if there are Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, enlightened beings anywhere around the world, the person who is directly helping you is your teacher. So if you don't acknowledge his contribution in your life and think others enlightened beings are kinder to me, that's also practically not fair. It's not truthful. Initially I used to think like that. Then I thought, well, it's actually whether my teacher is enlightened or not, I don't know. All right. As far as his holiness is, I definitely believe, okay. I could say I know. Then I thought, well, even if the Buddhas are there, it's practically my teacher from whom I learned. But even if I were to learn the same teaching from Buddha Shakyamuni, it's the same teaching that my teacher has taught. So why should I not acknowledge his presence in my life, his contribution in my life? And as a practitioner, I think that really helped us so much so that when my teacher passed away last year, I felt like a small baby abandoned. No, of course, he didn't abandon us. He gave us enough teaching, but I felt like a baby abandoned by a mother who has nowhere to turn up to. For a moment, for some time, I felt like that. The loss was nothing could have been greater than the loss of my teacher in my life. So the Guru Yoga concept practice is very important in Mahayana, particularly in Vajrayana. So that sums up entirely Four Noble Truths, Hinayana, Mahayana, everything. Okay. If you have some questions.
I think we
Yeah.